Has there ever been any domestic violence in your marriage?
Yeah.
Okay, let me break that down. Have you ever been physically violent with the defendant?
No.
Has the defendant ever been physically violent with you?
Yes.
Please tell the court what has happened.
Um, she's given me a few black eyes. Um, we had a domestic dispute when we first started dating. Um, she got a DV for scratching my face, but then it was withdrawn because I wouldn't testify against her. Um, she's tried to push me down the stairs before. Um, I don't know, just some violent tendencies sometimes. I wouldn't say it was regularly, but definitely a little bit more often towards the end there and a lot more in the beginning.
Okay. Talk about how many times she gave you a black eye.
Mm, 4 times probably.
Was that before or after the birth of your daughter?
Before.
What about the scratches on your face? When did that happen?
It had to have been like November, I think, of 2011 or 12.
Okay. When was the last time that you recall the defendant being physically violent towards you?
The week that I left, she tried to push me down the stairs, but I caught myself, thank God.
When was that? What month?
Uh, Had to have been either late December or early January of 2022, 2023, right there. I couldn't tell you the exact date, didn't write it down.
Where was your daughter at the time that occurred?
She was in our bedroom or her bed, one of the two. She wasn't in the same room. She wasn't holding her or anything.
But she was present in the house.
She was, yeah.
Was there a verbal argument or something going on?
Yeah. Yeah, we argued quite a bit the last few months. That's part of the decision why I didn't want to, like, we would, we fought quite a bit. It was a lot of arguing. I didn't think it was going to be a healthy situation for Surrey.
Has there been any physical violence towards the child that you're aware of by either yourself or the defendants?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
How do you consider your moral fitness and ability to raise your daughter with good morals?
I think it's good. I think that I have good morals. I try to be a good person, try to do the right thing, help others when I can.
What about the moral fitness of the defendant? Do you have concerns about it?
No, I don't think so. I'm not sure.
Well, let me ask it this way. Have you always considered her to tell the truth about things?
No, no, definitely not. Well, whether she believes it's the truth or not, that's a different question. Like, if, I think that she might believe some of the lies she says. That's the hard part about that, you know?
Let's talk a little bit about that. Do you have any mental or physical health concerns?
No, no, no. And I think if you read the examination or whatever by Dr. Jeffrey, you'll see that I was open and honest, and I didn't have he didn't have any concerns about me. Neither do I.
All right. I don't know if the court has a copy of that now. Has the court received it?
Yes.
Okay. At this point, I don't know if you want me to screen share it or just have the parties reference it.
I don't think we need to screen share it. For one thing, we're streaming on YouTube, so that's probably not something we want everybody to see.
Correct. It's my understanding, Mr. Carson, that you received a psychological evaluation from Dr. Jeff, he likes to be called. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
And when was
Yeah.
that
From
completed?
HRA. It was complete. I don't know the date exactly. I think it was 3 months ago. Well, the initial, because it's two different times, and then it was like a month and a half in between. I don't know the exact dates, but it was completed within the last 45 days or something like that. Oh no, I guess it was 2 months because it was right before our last court date that got postponed.
All right. And you had an opportunity then to review that report and discuss it with Dr. Jeff?
No, no, I just got the report and that was it. I didn't get to
Okay.
discuss it with him.
All right. To the best of your knowledge, was that also provided to the court under the last order?
Uh, Not until just now, I guess.
Okay. Your Honor, I'd like to mark that as People's Proposed Exhibit 1.
You mean plaintiff's proposed Exhibit 1?
I'm sorry. Yes, that's the former prosecutor in me.
All right.
Plaintiff.
Are you asking for it just to be marked, or do you want it admitted at this
I would
time?
like it marked unadmitted, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. Carson, any objection to admitting that report?
I believe that there's a lot of false statements made, but
Goes to weight, not admissibility, Your Honor, and she has the ability to cross-examine.
I would agree, Ms. Carson. That is, I guess the basis for an objection would be if you don't believe that that's the actual report.
you,
You'll have the opportunity to cross-examine on that and to raise issues about that.
okay.
So I will admit that report.
And you said you believed you were open and honest, Mr. Carson, with Dr. Jeff?
Absolutely, yes.
And to your knowledge, were there any findings that you had any difficulties in your ability to parent?
No, there wasn't any. He had no concerns in my ability to parent or co-parent.
Did you also have an opportunity to review an HRA report by Dr. Jeff for prepared regarding his interviews of the defendant?
I did not get a chance to do that. I believe I hadn't gotten it. I don't know if I still have. I haven't looked at my email.
Okay. Do you know if one was prepared and submitted to the court as well?
I do know that one was prepared and submitted, yes.
Was it to your knowledge, in a similar format as the one that was prepared for yourself?
To my knowledge, yes.
Dr. Jeff provided that to the court under the prior order.
I believe so.
Did you review that briefly with me prior to your testimony, sir?
I did, yeah.
Move for admission of Exhibit 2, Your Honor, as prepared by an expert ordered by this court to provide it to the court and the parties.
Ms. Carson, any objection?
No.
Okay, it's admitted. It's Exhibit 2.
Thank you. With respect to the review of that report that you and I went over, Mr. Carson, do you know if Dr. Jeff had any concerns first with the ability of the defendant to co-parent?
Yes, he did.
Do you recall what those concerns were?
I believe he said that he believes she may have a delusional disorder, but he deferred that she might need more more therapy or something. I don't know the exact words he used.
Okay. And then did he make an opinion or formulate an opinion, if you know, that we went over regarding the defendant's ability to parent?
Yes, I believe he did have some concerns with that as well.
For the same reason or something different, if you recall?
I think it was the same reasons.
Do you know, or recall the basis of his opinion for the potential, delusional disorder that he thought she may have?
I think it was based off of the report from the friend of the court, as well as their in-person interviews about the issues that she'd brought up, calling the FBI and Child Protective Services and accusing my family and me of having child trafficking rings and having people stalk her, as well as uh, having someone drug her and artificially inseminate her.
Who's the
Oh,
better?
as well as, yeah, sorry, and that she had takes like normal like little kid things and turns them into uh that I was sexually grooming my daughter. That was part of it, I think.
Okay. To the best of your knowledge, was Dr. Jeff able to find any factual bases or proof or evidence of these accusations being true?
No, he was not.
To the best of your knowledge, has anyone else ever come to you and investigated these or had any proof or evidence that these things were true?
No, they've never been proven true. They've all been proven false.
Have you ever been charged with any physical or sexual abuse of any child?
No, never.
Have you ever been charged of that with respect to your own daughter, Siri?
No.
Would you ever harm your daughter?
Absolutely not.
Have you ever sexually touched or groomed your daughter?
No.
Have you ever run a human trafficking ring regarding children or anyone else with your parents?
No, never.
And for that matter, have you ever run a human trafficking ring with anyone?
No, not at all.
Do you happen to know where these beliefs of the defendant are coming from?
Honestly, I have no idea. She said that there was jokes or something that she took a wrong way, which I don't remember ever even hearing like people don't really joke about trafficking humans. I don't know where it came up from. I have no idea.
To your knowledge, has the defendant ever been hospitalized for any mental health concerns?
Not to my knowledge.
To your knowledge, has she ever been treated for any mental health concerns? She being the defendant.
Yeah, I think she went to a psychologist once or something. I think she took some selective serotonin inhibitors for like a week, but then stopped. She said that she wasn't diagnosed with anything, so to my knowledge.
Understanding that you've been separated for a period of time, when you were together with the defendant, did she exhibit mental health concerns that you could observe?
Yeah, yes.
What did you see exhibited in the defendant when you were living together?
Towards the end of the relationship, she was hiding her food out in the car and locking it away. She wouldn't leave water in the same room as me. She thought I was going to poison her. She's denied this over and over, but it happened. She said that she was being stalked by a police officer. She said that she was being stalked by the gym manager that she was working at for a while. I believe there was one other person. And I'd never observed any of it, nor had anyone else that I talked to.
Did you ever see anyone following your wife?
No, no,
Did you ever see anyone sitting outside the home or the gym or her place of business?
I didn't know.
Did you ever find any tracking devices on her vehicle or listening devices in her phone?
Nope. And we've looked. She had me look multiple times, and she even took her vehicle to get it looked at after I had left. And they said that there wasn't anything that they could find, to my knowledge. That's what she said anyway.
How many times did you look for those things at the request of your wife?
A few times. I don't know exactly how many. That's why we got rid of her newer car and got her an older car, because she wanted something that didn't have GPS. She thought that the GPS in her car could be hacked and people would know where she was going. She would even leave her phone at home sometimes so that she couldn't be followed.
How often would she leave her phone?
Mm, Quite often. She even went and bought prepaid phones a few times, burner phones, so that people wouldn't follow her. She also thought that the music at grocery stores and stuff was people playing music to harass her.
How many times did she express that in the grocery store?
Oh, a lot. Probably every time we went for the last 3 years of our marriage. She would either wear headphones or something, or she didn't even want to go. She always thought that it was someone was playing music and it was just for her.
Did you try to dissuade her of that belief?
I did. I did.
Were you successful in doing so?
No. Sometimes I don't know if she just was appeasing me by saying, yeah, you're probably right. But then a week or so later, it would go back to the same thing. Like it was like a recurring process of trying to dissuade her from the believing things that weren't real.
Did you ever think that she may need professional mental health assistance with those beliefs?
Yeah, the one time that she went and saw that therapist and was on SSRIs was because I requested her go.
Has she never shared any of that information with you other than the one medication?
Yeah, no, no, she didn't want to go. She thought that whoever the doctors she was going to go see were hired by my parents. So she didn't trust anyone.
Did you allow her to help you choose where she would go?
Oh yeah, I told her I wouldn't have anything to do with it. I didn't even want to know if that helped her or whatever. And she could look it up at the library or something. None of that helped.
What did she think your parents were doing other than running this human trafficking ring?
Oh, I mean, she thought that they had like a whole network of people that the people that I said were stalking her were actually hired by my parents or in some kind of collusion with them, as well as people who came into her work to harass her were also uh, like people who worked for my parents and their mass ring of people that they could control with their money.
Where do your parents reside?
In a house in North Glen, or I guess it's Westminster.
I guess. Is that Colorado?
Yeah, it's in Colorado. It's like 112th and Pecos.
Okay. And do they have any employees to your knowledge in Michigan?
No, no.
To your knowledge, did your parents hire anybody to follow or watch your wife?
No, no, and I'd talked to him about it a bunch of times, and obviously it was hurtful for me to have to ask them that. There was at a time where she could be quite convincing that I tried to believe her as much as I could to make our marriage work. But in the end, obviously it was once she started to point the finger at me and all this sexual stuff, the child trafficking ring and all that, I realized that probably a lot of the things that she had said in the last few years were more delusional than they were of facts.
Was there anything regarding these concerns expressed to you by the defendant that you could find through the years of your marriage that proved any of her beliefs about being stalked or followed or listened to be true?
Never once. I tried a lot. I really wanted to believe her, but no, I never could once find any factual evidence. There was never like, I always thought if you were being stalked that eventually you would get a note. Usually stalking progresses, you get a note or flowers or something. None of that had ever occurred.
Okay. And with respect to these beliefs, do you know if the defendant disclosed them to authorities that caused you concern or difficulty?
Uh, Luckily her things are so outlandish that they would call me and they would say, "Oh, well, she said something," but they didn't even like she said something, she called CPS on me, but they were like, "Oh, so your daughter doesn't even live with you?" And I said, "No." And they said, "Oh, well, we'll just write this off." But it hasn't really done anything to me, but to my knowledge, she's called the FBI, CPS, the police officers, probably anyone you could find online.
Has anything ever come of those calls that you have been personally made aware of?
Nope.
You had an opportunity to review the friend of the court report and recommendation. Is that true, sir?
Yes,
And in fact, that went to the court as well. Do you recall that
I do. Yes.
under the order? Your Honor, if we could have that marked as proposed exhibit 3.
Again, are you asking for it to be just marked, or are you asking for the admission?
I'll ask for admission after I just go over it a little bit with him and lay the foundation, Your Honor.
All right. It is marked as Exhibit 3.
Thank you. Mr. Carson, with that friend of the court report and recommendation, you said you've had an opportunity to view that prior to your testimony today. Is that correct, sir?
That's correct.
And in fact, you wanted us to file an objection regarding that report and recommendation. Is that fair to say?
That is fair to say, yes.
Did that report contain much of the information from the defendant to that investigator that you've just testified to?
Yeah, she admitted that she had done all of those things.
To your knowledge, did the friend of the court investigator find any evidence supporting those allegations?
He did not.
And to the best of your ability, the copy that we received from the investigator is the same one that was provided to the court without any changes?
Correct.
Okay, move for admission of exhibit 3, Your Honor.
Ms. Carson, any objection?
Yeah, I object. There's many false statements made.
Again, you are able to cross-examine and give your own testimony regarding that. The question is that the front of the court recommendation?
Front of the court recommendation.
Is that the recommendation that was issued, what you were sent?
That I was sent?
You would have been given the front of the court since your recommendation this fall? and then Mr. Carson objected to it.
Oh, I guess I'm not sure. We could just move on. That's fine.
Yeah, I'm not able to admit it without a stipulation by the parties. So go ahead, Ms. Canfield.
Thank you. Well, Mr. Carson, did you object to the legal custody being with either the defendant or both of you?
Yes,
Why did you object to that?
because she is clearly incapable of making decisions based on facts. She believes things that aren't real.
Do you think that that could impact her ability to make well-reasoned decisions regarding your daughter?
I do. I mean, what if she believes that the doctor or the physician that I take my daughter to as on cahoots with whoever or something? I don't know. There's just a lot of liability there.
Do you have the capability of looking at all of the facts in the best interest of your daughter and making well-reasoned decisions regarding her upbringing?
I do. I do.
Could you make decisions about her medical care reasonably?
Yes.
Could
Yeah,
you make decisions about her dental and vision care if needed?
I could.
Can you make decisions about your daughter's schooling and social and, sport activities when she's old enough in the best interest of your daughter?
I believe so. Yeah.
What about her religious upbringing?
I think that I could do a great job of giving her all of the options.
If you were to be granted sole legal custody to make those decisions by this court, would you still keep the defendant in the loop and inform her of what's happening with Siri?
Absolutely. I would never want to take my daughter away from her mother. I just want the best for my daughter.
When the defendant had legal custody or joint with you, did she give you any information pertaining to those items that we just discussed?
No, no, she did not.
Do you believe moving forward, she would be able to provide you information regarding those particular items?
Not to my knowledge.
Do you have concerns about the defendant's ability to co-parent on those legal decisions with you?
Mm. Yeah, I feel like we rarely agree anymore.
Do you think that the defendant would have the capability of setting aside any of those beliefs that we had your testimony regarding? Set those things aside and make a well-reasoned, fact-based decision for your daughter?
Mm. I I'm not a therapist. I couldn't tell you exactly. I mean, it changes. So I think that she's trying. She's been working on it. We I think
You
she's
said
been
it.
working on it, but
It changes and it vacillates, much like the decision about schooling or religious upbringing and exposure.
correct.
Regarding the physical custody of your daughter, what physical custody would you like to have?
I would like to have 50-50. But if I had to have sole legal custody until she could get her mental stability better, then I could do that too. But obviously, I think that the more healthier decision would be 50-50. A child needs both parents.
So you think 50-50 physical custody would be in the best interest of your daughter?
I do.
Would you be able to exercise that in Michigan if it were to be granted?
I could find a way. If Saida decided she was going to stay in Michigan, then I would probably find a way to move back. My daughter's more important than my job.
Have you and the defendant spoken about whether or not she's going to remain in Michigan?
Yeah, uh, I I question her about it quite frequently, almost every time we video call. And the more recent video calls, she said that she's willing to move to not only Colorado, but Colorado Springs to be closer to me so that when we are co-parenting, that the availability to either of us in an emergency situation is easier.
And to your knowledge, is there a better support system for the defendant in Colorado versus Michigan?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Her mom, she has like 4 aunts that live here, an uncle, lots of cousins. She has a lot of family out here.
If the defendant doesn't move from Michigan, do you still want 50-50 parenting time?
No, I would rather have full custody. I think that it would be better for my daughter to be here. But if I only got 50-50, then I would move back. But if I feel like the best situation for Surya is to be in Colorado where there's lots and lots of family and help and structure.
Describe the community that Siri was exposed to when she came out to Colorado for Christmas and stayed with your parents and you.
Uh, it was my parents' first time seeing my daughter, so it was just the four of us. Didn't really want to take away from that experience for them. But when I was over at my grandma's house, my cousin Rich and his wife were there, as well as my uncle and his wife.
Did Siri seem to adjust well to that number of people being present?
Yeah, she seemed fine. She was just playing, um, walking around, looking at things. I mean, it took her a little while each time at the new places to get more comfortable, but within, I'd say 30 minutes or so, that she was more comfortable and able to explore and act more like a toddler.
To your knowledge, are there any special circumstances or needs that your daughter has, medically or otherwise?
No, she seems perfectly normal to me and healthy.
And you indicated she's 2 years of age and she's weaned and not nursing any longer.
That's correct.
Is there any likelihood that she would be abused or neglected in your household?
No,
Is there any likelihood that with the exercise of parenting time or joint physical custody with the defendant, that the defendant would be harmed by you at all?
no, absolutely not.
Is there any likelihood that you could potentially be harmed by the defendant if there was shared physical custody of your daughter?
Um, no, I mean, we wouldn't be spending significant amounts of time together, so I don't think so. I
Okay.
think that we could handle an hour or whatever at a time where we're transferring the child and maybe talking and making parental decisions.
If the two of you were living either both in Michigan or both in Colorado, would there be any inconvenience that you can foresee with exercising that parenting time as far as travel is concerned?
No, but I feel like if she didn't stick to the same schedule there as she did at my house, that it would be more difficult. Like she can't go to sleep at 4 o'clock in the morning over there, and then the next time she's at my house, she wakes up at 5. That's obviously not going to be good for her. So I feel like if I don't know that Saida could co-parent in the fact keeping the same schedule as I think that Surrey should have.
So you're concerned and think that the defendant's schedule for your daughter would not be consistent with yours, and that would cause hardship and difficulties for your child?
Yeah, exactly. Like when I went to go pick her up for my time, she probably would still be asleep or whatever, and it would be a problematic.
With the current parenting time order, are you paying all of the travel expenses?
I pay 100% of the travel expenses as well as the mortgage on the house.
Being unemployed, do you have any reasonable expectation that the defendant could get a refinancing option for the marital home within 45 days
No,
of the judgment?
no, not to my knowledge.
Do you anticipate then that the marital home will end up being sold and you being paid equity?
Correct.
Would you anticipate that would then encourage the defendant's relocation back to Colorado to exercise custody and parenting time there?
I would hope so, yes. She's said as much.
Have you ever failed to exercise your parenting time since the temporary order was put into place?
Uh, Not that it was my cause. There was one time that I wanted to go, and I had already purchased tickets and let her know everything well ahead of time, and she said that she wasn't going to be home. So that was one time that I had taken off of work and everything to come and see my daughter, but I couldn't because she said she wasn't going to be home.
How much
But
notice?
anytime that I could, that I did. How much notification? I usually give a month or at least 2.5 weeks or something. As soon as I can figure out when I can have time off, because obviously I have to plan when I have to leave the state to see her.
Certainly. And do you recall the month that that happened where the defendant withheld that parenting time from you?
I want to say it was June of last year.
Have you ever withheld returning the child to the defendant?
Absolutely not. No.
Would you ever do so?
No.
Has the defendant, other than this June of 2023 time, ever stated to you that she would not give the child back to you or allow you to have parenting time?
No, she hasn't stated that. No. She's not really concerned about how much time I spend with her either. Like I said, she doesn't wake up till 11, and if I have to leave at 5, then that's all the time I get.
Do you think that she would be consistent in following a parenting time order if there was joint physical custody and you had more parenting time?
Uh, I don't know. I would hope so, but I'm not sure.
Well, if her pattern has been to let the child sleep irregular hours and miss parenting time with you when you travel to Michigan to exercise it, do you think that still would be the same habit or pattern in Colorado by the defendant?
Yeah. Probably, yes.
Is that one of the bases for which you're requesting sole physical custody?
Yes.
Do you have the capability of having overnight parenting time for your daughter?
Yes.
You would be able to be there with her overnight rather than her being in care?
Oh, yeah. I have a very regular schedule, so I would be there the whole time.
If you were to have full physical custody What parenting schedule would you propose for the defendant?
I suppose it would be if I had sole custody,
Correct.
I would propose that we um do things together on the weekend where she spends time with Suri until she can prove that she can be more reliable. And maybe have like another recommendation from a different therapist that she's working on things, like, I guess, until we could get along, and if she's clearly not um showing any more signs of delusion. I would rather work back towards 50-50. So I would start small and see how we could make it work.
So weekend parenting time during the daytime?
Yeah.
And then would you like, you've mentioned some therapies. Would you like the defendant to see another therapist?
Yeah. I obviously want her to have the best mental health available for herself so that she can be a better mother.
Would you encourage her to follow the recommendations of that provider?
I would, yes.
Do you wish to ask the court to order her to have additional treatment for her mental health and to provide proof of that to either the court or yourself?
Yes.
I don't think I asked you. I know we discussed employment, Mr. Carson, but what is your educational background? Just briefly.
I just graduated high school. I started working full time immediately after high school.
You indicated, we talked about your employment. That was a new job that occurred after the friend of the court investigation. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's correct. So when I first moved back, I worked at a landfill for a while uh, me and my dad decided what would be best as to where my position should be held back with the company. So I just started in October.
Do you believe that will be consistent employment in the next 5 to 10 years?
Oh, absolutely. I worked here for 10 years before we left, so it's my family business. I plan on being here till I retire.
Right. So we've already updated the court with your updated income level. You said you weren't aware that the defendant had become unemployed. Do you believe the defendant has the ability to be full-time employed?
I do, yeah.
And did you and my office conduct some investigation as to what the mean or media employment levels were for cosmetologists in Colorado?
Yeah, I believe you did.
Okay.
You told me it was like 33 or $38,000 a year.
And did you have an opportunity to review those documents that were attached to your objection?
I didn't know.
You had indicated previously you thought at the best time of employment, the defendant was making $1,200 to $1,300 a week.
Yes,
Do you feel she's capable of making that same income level at another salon?
I do, yeah. She was a pretty good cosmetologist when she did it.
Are you asking the court to impute to her a higher income level based upon that cosmetology licensure and the fact that she'd earned that amount previously?
Yes,
Do you think that the defendant is intentionally unemployed currently?
I do.
Is there anything else that you would like the court to know regarding the front of the court recommendation or the things that we've discussed today through your testimony?
No, I don't think so.
You indicated that the defendant resides with her sister. Is that true?
Yes.
To the best of your knowledge, is the sister any type of a danger to your daughter?
I'm not sure. I know that she has had a traumatic brain injury and she takes schizophrenic medication. So basically, it seems like Saeed is taking care of two people instead of having a support system.
When you've been present in the home, have you seen the defendant's sister there?
Yes.
Has she ever exhibited any behaviors that cause you concern regarding a toddler being in the household?
No, she mostly just sits around.
Do you think that there's any reason, Mr. Carson, that your parenting time should be supervised with your daughter?
No, absolutely not.
Were there ever times where the defendant threw things in the household?
Uh, yeah, she's thrown things at me a few times.
Was that
Uh,
before your daughter was born, after, or both?
it was before. Yeah.
How many times did she throw things?
I couldn't be sure. I don't know the number. More than a handful.
What types of objects were thrown?
Cell phone, remote, cast iron skillet, candles, a glass. Yeah, that's what I can remember.
Was anything damaged when that happened?
Yeah, my cell phone was broken. The door to our first house, the one that we lived in Thornton, was damaged. Um, Obviously the glass broke. No, other than that,
Were you ever injured by the items being thrown?
uh, no, I have pretty good reaction time, so I blocked most of it. But
Okay. Tell us a little bit more about this last incident in late December of 22, early January of 23, where the defendant tried to push you down the house or down the
yeah,
stairs of the house. What
yeah.
happened at that time?
I believe we were in an argument, having to do with her thinking I was trying to poison her, or keeping water in the other rooms, or I think it was like a culmination of all the things she was saying about me grooming our daughter as well. Um, that obviously pressed uh, a pretty annoying button for me. So I obviously was upset. She also was upset, and I think I said I was leaving, like leaving the house for good. And that's when she tried to push me down the stairs.
Is it this the current house in which the defendant's residing?
That's correct. Yes.
And you indicated those are hardwood steps?
They
Previously,
are.
how many steps?
There's a set and then like a little landing and then another set. I'm not sure. I think there's 7 on both sides. But there's a window at the bottom of the top set, which is where she pushed me from. That's what made me the most angry. I actually left the house after that.
There's no handrail there, correct?
Right.
How were you able to prevent your fall?
I grabbed onto the wall, like I've used both hands to make pressure so that I wouldn't go down.
Where was the defendant pushing you?
From my back.
Were you injured at all that time?
I wasn't, no.
Would you agree to share medical, dental, school, and other reports of your daughter with the defendant?
Yes.
Would you agree to notify her if there was an emergency or medical care that needed to be obtained quickly for your daughter?
Yes, of course.
Would you encourage and foster a relationship with the defendant and your daughter?
Yes.
Do you think that either of you need co-parenting counseling?
I think she does. I think I understand the concept pretty well, and I've followed all of the rules as far as and I have had a lot more rules than she has. So
Once the judgment of divorce is entered by this court, are you aware of any source of income the defendant has to support herself and the child?
just the savings account she has and the money that she'll get from the house.
When you say money from the house, you mean if the house is sold?
Yeah, I mean, we have quite a bit of equity. So between that and her savings account, she probably could not be employed for a while on that. So
Okay. Let's just talk about that for just a moment. So the court's aware, what is the current value of the marital home?
the last time I just looked like at the Zillow estimate, I think it was 330 or 340,000.
Shall we go 335 to the middle?
Yeah, let's go
All right.
335.
And then
And
do you know what the mortgage is that you're paying? What the balance
uh
is?
yeah, and I think we owe 93, it's like 93 or 94,000.
Okay, we'll go 93. We'll give everybody the benefit of the payment for February.
Okay.
Okay. And then as previously stated on the record, you two had agreed to either split the equity 50-50, where she would have to pay you if she kept the house and refinance. Or obviously, if it's sold, then the sale price minus the mortgage and closing costs would become your equity. Do you agree to that?
Yeah,
Is
correct.
that what you're asking the court to impose?
Yes, it is.
Would you agree that the child support should be calculated based upon your current income and imputed mean income for a cosmetologist for the defendant, and then based upon overnights?
Yeah, depending on the timing of the, obviously if whatever the parenting time is, I want to support my daughter. So I'm not fighting on the money. I just don't want it to be unfair. If it's 50-50, I don't think I should be paying her.
I have no further questions, Mr. Carson. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Carson, this is your opportunity to cross-examine Mr. Carson on his testimony. So you need to ask him questions.
Are you sure we don't have a handrail on the stairs?
I'm pretty positive that there's not one.
How are
That's
you,
what they said when we moved in.
how are you able to catch yourself from falling? If you were almost
I
thrown
think
down the stairs.
I either use like the bathroom door jam or the two walls. I don't know. You were there. I just I caught my balance.
Okay, this one is just the easiest for me to prove that it was false. I could just grab the computer and show you guys the stairs really quick.
But that's not
Is
what the
there?
purpose of this is. This is the time
Oh,
for you to ask him questions, and then I'll
okay.
give you an opportunity to present what you want to present afterwards, okay? Do you have any other questions for Mr. Carson
Oh, like questions as in,
about his testimony? Again,
oh,
if you had an attorney, your attorney would be what cross-examining him on his testimony, asking him questions on issues that you want to raise. But it's again, since you're representing yourself, it's on you to ask him questions. And if you don't have any, that's fine. But they need to be questions.
questions and not objections. Okay. No, I don't have any questions then.
All right. Thank you. Ms. Camfield, did you wish to call Ms. Carson as a witness?
Yes, I think I will. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. I will just let the parties know that I only have until noon today, and that we may have to set this for additional time, but I want to give it up to noon if we can.
Certainly, Your Honor.
Ms. Carson, would you raise your right hand, please? Would you state your name for the record?
Saida Carson?
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Since this is the opposing party, Your Honor, permission to treat as a hostile witness?
Granted.
Thank you. Ms. Carson, that only means that we have opposing sides, not that you're necessarily a hostile person, okay? Let me ask, you were married to my client, Nicholas Carson, is that correct?
Yes.
For how long, ma'am?
Since 2015.
You met and were initially married in Colorado, is that true?
Yes.
And then you had your daughter, in what year, ma'am?
2022. January.
Were there any difficulties that you had with your pregnancy or the birth of your daughter?
Yeah, she was, I was in labor for 7 hours and they had to use a suction cup and she was fine. She was a healthy weight, but she was born with jaundice.
Okay. Did that resolve itself over the next few weeks?
Yes.
Okay. And your daughter's currently 2, is that accurate?
Yes.
Can you describe for the court what type of a routine you keep for her at home?
You know, I was going to get her into a regular schedule once she's closer to, you know, being in preschool. But since she's not in preschool, I go to bed around midnight and I wake up around 10, and she does the same. We have the same schedule.
Okay. And there was testimony from my client that the sleeping arrangement prior to his leaving the home was that your child would sleep in her own room. Is that true?
Yeah.
And then when he moved out, your child started to sleep in the bed with you?
Yeah, we co-sleep. Yes.
Can you describe for the court why you chose to co-sleep after the defendant left?
Oh, it just makes me feel safer. I don't have any weapons or anything in the house. If there were to be like a break-in, you know, I could just, she'd just be right there, you know. Wouldn't have to run to her bedroom. It just makes me feel safer.
I see. Have there been any concerns that you had previously with any break-ins or danger in your neighborhood?
No.
Do you read to your daughter?
Yes.
What other activities do you do with her?
Uh, we go to the park. We go on walks. We go shopping to the mall.
What types of things does your daughter like to do?
She loves to go to the library and she loves to go to the park.
What are her favorite things to do with you at the park?
The swing and the slide.
Does your daughter exhibit some speech delays as described by my client, Mr. Carson?
Yeah, she stopped hitting her milestones at 18 months, which is the age where autism starts to show up, based on what the pediatrician stated.
You currently have her scheduled for an evaluation for that, is that accurate?
Yes.
And do you know what date and time?
Yes, it's March 3rd.
What time, please?
I'll have to take a look at it again, but I did send a copy to the plaintiff's lawyer.
Okay. If that is not found, would you be willing to inform Mr. Carson of that evaluation date and time again?
Oh, of course.
Now, Mr. Carson testified that you have not previously been willing to provide him with the physician's names and the dates of doctor's appointments. Is that accurate?
No, that's not accurate. I've been going to the same place ever since forever. I've never changed locations. So he's always had access to calling the office that I go to. And when we video chat, I always do tell him about how the appointments go.
Do you offer that information or does Mr. Carson have to ask you for it?
Oh, I just kind of tell him, you know, when he asks about her, I try to include her, anything that happens at all.
Have you ever provided Mr. Carson a copy of your daughter's social security card or the number?
No, I haven't.
Has he asked for it?
Yes.
Why do you think he doesn't deserve to have his daughter's social security number?
He asked for it one time and I forgot to give it to him. He never asked again. So I just forgot.
Are you willing to provide that now?
Yeah. He's came to the house many times, you know. He could have asked me and I could have just showed it to him. That would have been easier than sending it.
Well, knowing that he asked for it, Mrs. Carson, couldn't you just take a photocopy of it and mail it to him if you were concerned about things going over the internet? Or handed it to him during some parenting time?
He could have asked me.
And you could have also provided it, fair?
Yeah.
Now, what about your daughter's birth certificate? Do you have a copy of that?
Yes.
Have you ever made a copy for your husband?
No, I haven't.
Do you agree with me that he's asked for that as well?
No, he's only asked for his social security number over the phone so he could, for health insurance reasons.
Okay. Would you agree with me that it would be really great to have your daughter on some additional health insurance through his plan?
She's on Medicaid and she didn't have health insurance when he was living here. And I got her health insurance as soon as he moved out.
Okay. You understand he has the ability to have a good private insurance for her now, true?
Yeah.
Are you willing to allow him to do that so that he can provide for her medically as well?
Yes.
Would you agree to provide him a copy of her birth certificate?
Yes.
Now, there's been a lot of discussion about concerns that you have regarding being surveilled. Is that fair? Ms. Carson, with listening devices or tracking devices on your phone or your vehicle?
No, I don't. Our cell phones were owned by his parents while he was working for them. Um, I've only expressed something once or twice. He's expressed the same.
Okay,
I always thought we were on the same page with that. That's why we got new cell phones.
okay. So when you say the cell phone's owned by his parents, were you concerned that they put some type of a tracking device on there so they would know where you and Nick were?
No, I just didn't really want cell phones owned by his parents, so we got different ones. Since they're company cell phones, he didn't work for the company anymore.
Would you agree with me that well, let me ask first, did you have an opportunity to look at your psychological evaluation from Dr. Jeff?
Yes,
And did you have an opportunity to look at the front of the court investigation and report that has been submitted but not yet admitted to the court?
I don't think so.
Did you receive a copy of that from the front of the court? They would have served it to you.
Oh, you mean like in the mail?
Correct.
There's a link. No, I never got it in the mail, but there's a link on my email, and I
Okay,
have to make an account for it to get into it. So
okay. So you hadn't yet done that.
what was that?
You haven't yet done that to link it and make an account so you can look at that report?
No, I just took my husband's word for what it said.
Okay. Now, based upon that report, would you agree with me that you've disclosed to that investigator as well as Dr. Jeff that you believe that people were listening to your conversations over the phones?
Because they're company phones, yes, I might have stated that once. Yeah.
Okay. Did you ever tell anyone that you thought you were being stalked by people at work or by employees of my client's parents?
There were some strange things happening at my work, but I wouldn't say I was being physically stalked by a person, by his parents. I never stated that I was.
Do you recall disclosing to people, either the investigators or even directly to my client, that you thought he and his parents were running a human trafficking ring?
Uh, I think that, I didn't type up the police report, so I think I might have misworded some things. I don't think I was describing what I was meaning to say correctly because I was, a little stressed out.
There were no charges brought as a result of that report. Is that fair?
Yes.
Do you believe that my client's involved in a human trafficking ring?
Human trafficking ring? No, I never meant to express human trafficking ring.
Okay. Do you think he's human trafficking anyone?
No.
Okay. With respect to your daughter, have you had verbal arguments with my client in the presence of your daughter?
Verbal arguments? We've had disagreements, yes, but there really wasn't a lot of fighting before we separated. I mostly went on walks and, I tried to, that's kind of why he left, is because I was kind of isolating from him.
Do you have a tendency to isolate and disengage rather than interact when that happens?
Yeah, I'm not very confrontational. So, if there's something serious going on, I really just, especially with having an infant around, it's just best to avoid any kind of major drama.
Mhm. My client had described most recently in late December of 2022 and early January of 23 that you had tried to push him down the stairs after an argument when he said he was leaving the house. Did you do that?
No.
Why do you think he would say that if it didn't happen?
Well, he says a lot of things to justify the strange things that he does.
Have you given him black eyes before in physical attacks?
No.
Did you scratch his face?
No, the charges were dropped because he did testify in court stating that we both got injuries from a mosh pit, a violent encounter at a bar.
So you're saying those injuries were from a mosh pit and not from you?
Yes, and he stated it as well.
Do you have proof of that, ma'am? Do you have any transcript or anybody else who heard that?
Well, no, I guess I don't.
Can you tell us a little bit about your sister? I know she'd had a pretty bad accident and suffered an injury.
Mhm.
Is she able to care for herself?
Um, her medication makes her pretty fine. She's just a little over obese, so I mean she can't do heavy activities like
Mhm.
you know.
Okay. The medication that she takes, do you know what type that is?
I don't.
Where is that kept for her?
It's kept in her room.
Does your daughter ever go in her room?
Yeah, she goes in her room, but the medicine is not anywhere like in hand's reach.
Does your daughter like to climb things?
Yeah.
You said she likes to go down the slide. She goes up the stairs. I think there was testimony she would like to go up and down the stairs.
Yeah, and it's always supervised. I always hold her hands when she's going up and down the stairs. There's also a handrail too.
Let me ask you, is there furniture nearby where the medication's kept in your sister's room?
You know, to be honest, I'm just guessing that it's in her room. I mean I don't watch. I don't know where she keeps her medication.
Does she have to have your assistance, she being your sister, to take her medication?
Does she need my assistance
Correct.
to take her medication? No, I just remind her at night.
Okay. Have you ever seen that medication out where your daughter might get into it?
No,
Has your sister ever been aggressive towards you, your daughter, or anyone else?
no,
To the best of your knowledge as her caretaker, has she ever been diagnosed with a psychological or mental health disorder other than the injury?
yeah, she's diagnosed with a couple things, yes.
Okay. Are any of those things cause for concern to you regarding your daughter's safety?
No,
Does your sister have any type of paranoid schizophrenia?
not that I'm aware of.
Does she have any delusions, either auditory for listening or things that she sees that aren't there?
Mm, I'm not sure. She's on medication, so she has no problems with mental health problems anymore.
To the best of your knowledge, is she consistent in taking her medication and compliant with the dosage?
Yes, she's very on top of it.
Do you ever have a concern for the safety of your daughter around your sister?
No,
No,
I've
I
never
understand.
left her alone with her either. So I mean,
Okay, so you don't leave her alone with
no,
your sister?
no.
How are you, I know Mr. Carson's paying for the mortgage on the house. How are you affording groceries and gas for your car and different things like that right now?
Well, we split our savings account uh, that was acquired from selling our house when we moved here. And so I used that.
Okay,
Oh, my sister she was paying rent to live here for like a couple months, but she stopped in October.
okay. And you stopped working in October. Can you tell the court why?
Why? Because I was just trying to focus on my health. The divorce being pretty, the divorce hasn't been so easy on me. So
Okay.
I was seeing a therapist and stuff
How often did you see your therapist?
once a week or once every other week, actually.
Okay, so kind of once bi-weekly spare.
Yeah.
And is that individual helping you with these beliefs that Nick testified to as well? And that you have that haven't been proven?
Oh, yeah, she was helping me.
Okay. Are you still seeing her?
No, I'm not.
Do you think it would be beneficial for you to still see her?
Um, yeah, I could definitely go back to seeing a therapist.
Have you ever had any mental health treatment previous to your um, well, let's say just previous to when you and your husband separated? So last summer,
So you mean before we separated, did I have any mental health problems?
correct?
Uh, ye- yeah, I had anxiety
Okay.
and OCD.
And to the best of your knowledge, is the anxiety demonstrated or shown symptomatically by these beliefs or thoughts that you have that others are following you or listening to you?
No,
Okay. Do you take medication for your anxiety currently?
I don't have anxiety very much anymore.
Did you ever have to take anything for your OCD or do any occupational therapy for that?
Um, did I have to? No, I never had to.
Did you engage in any voluntarily?
Yes,
Okay, for how long?
not long, couple sessions.
Do you recall what year that was?
2019.
Did that help you?
Yeah, it did help me.
Okay. Now, with respect to your daughter's injury, and it might be upsetting to go back to that day, but can you tell the court, Mrs. Carson, how was it that your 2-year-old daughter ended up with a broken jaw?
Well, I was pushing her on a stroller and she was attached to the seat belt. And when we got home from the park, there was dead baby birds right on my doorway.
Hmm.
And so I was kind of a little bit, you know, freaking out about that a little bit.
Yeah,
Um,
that's not really great to come home to, is it?
yeah,
Okay, so what happened next after you saw the birds?
I um I attempted to move the birds out of the way so I wouldn't run it over with the stroller. And she got out of her seatbelt and fell on her jaw. So I was just trying to move the birds out of the way so I could
Okay.
walk through, you know.
And I can understand that. So is it fair to say that when you were trying to move the birds, you left your daughter unattended for just a few seconds to get those out of the way?
Yeah, I turned away from looking at her for like 2 minutes,
Okay.
but she was in a seatbelt
Mhm.
that she got out of.
Has she tried to escape, if you will, as toddlers are good at that, from the seatbelt before in the stroller?
That was actually the first time. You know, she's just kind of getting, just getting into her toddler because it was last summer, so she was still an infant.
About 18 months old.
Yeah, she was still considered an infant when it happened.
Okay. And when she did that, can you describe the area in which that happened? I know you're talking about your doorstep. Like, are you approaching your front door or some different door?
Yeah, approaching my door.
And does the front door have a stoop or a porch?
It was actually well, I always use the door by my car.
Is that a side door to the house
'Cause
then?
there's no key to unlock the,
Okay. So just for clarification of the record, we're not talking about the front door now. We're talking about the side door where you park?
yeah.
Okay. And what kind of an area is that?
So, my car, and then there's the door, and then there's just like not a lot of room to get the stroller through.
Okay. Is
Um,
it cement there, gravel, or something different?
Cement.
Okay. And when she was getting out of the stroller, you didn't see her get out, obviously. You didn't know she was trying to get out. True?
The stroller tilted over as soon as she stood up, so
No,
I
okay.
did see it happen, and I didn't catch it in time.
Okay. So I'm just picturing it. She's standing up in the stroller, you're between the car and the door, and there's cement there.
Yeah,
What did she hit her jaw?
cement.
Okay. So the stroller tipped with your daughter standing in it and she went face first into the cement?
Yes.
Did she lose any teeth or anything at that point? Was she teething?
She had her teeth were kind of misaligned,
Okay.
and she was bleeding a lot.
Mhm.
So I took her straight to the emergency room, and then she was transferred to Helen Davos, which is a children's hospital.
Mhm.
They checked her jaw, and luckily she didn't need surgery. But we were still there for a couple days, so I mean, I was in quite shock. I wasn't able to call him right away because I was in such shock, and I was attending to my, injured infant. But I did call him as soon as we left the hospital and came home. It was
Did
2 days after it happened.
Let me ask you, did you have your cell phone with you when you guys went to the park that day?
Did I have my cell phone? Yeah, I did.
Did you have the cell phone with you at the hospital?
Yes.
Did you have some time when your daughter might have been sleeping from her medications that you could have texted Mr. Carson about the injury?
Well, he was in, I guess that I could have had time. It was an error that I made during a time of emergency. Um, but, it's not like he could have flown.
Well, let me ask
He
it
was out
to you
of
this
state.
way.
I'm going to interrupt. I'm so
Sure.
sorry, but it's 11:55 and I'm
Okay.
going to have to stop for the day.
Sure.
We will have to set another date to continue this. And I think Ms. Van Noller, we can stop recording, stop live streaming, and I will leave and ask for you to work out another date
Certainly, Anna.
to
Thank you.
finish. I would think 2 hours should be sufficient.
I hope so, yes. We'll go with that.
Ms.
We'll
Carson, would
make
you
it
agree with that?
sufficient.